Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. Close to Srila Prabhupada. So, today we will start a discussion on the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, titled The Opulence of the Absolute, also called Vibhuti Yoga. So, let's start with the first verse. Sri Bhagavan Vacha Bhuya eva mahabhao shanu me paramam vachah yatte priyamanaya vakshami hitakamyaya. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Listen again, O mighty armed Arjun. Because you are my dear friend, for your benefit I shall speak to you further, giving knowledge that is better than what I have already explained." So, in the 9th chapter, Krishna gave the most confidential knowledge. And here he starts off by saying that I'll give you knowledge that is even better. So, what can be better than the most confidential knowledge is the details related to it. So, essentially, in these 3 chapters, 10th, 11th and 12th, Krishna will provide successively in greater details what he has already established. So in the 7th, 8th and 9th chapter, Krishna gave the confidential knowledge about himself, about the prior to the 7th chapter, in the first 6 chapters, the confidential knowledge about the jiva. In the 7th and the 8th chapter, Krishna gave knowledge about himself. In the 9th chapter, he spoke about bhakti, how the jiva can connect to Krishna. Now, having explained bhakti from a philosophical perspective, Krishna is now going to talk about it more from a detailed perspective. That's why he says that this is better, because it gives further details. So somebody might say that I visited Vrindavan and it was wonderful, right? And that statement is accurate. But then somebody might say it was wonderful because I had a great time taking darshan of Radha Madan Mohan and Krishna Balram and Radha Shyam Sundar. It was great because I went to Yamuna Ghat. And somebody might even go in greater details, that when I was in front of Radha Shyam Sundar, I saw they were dressed in this way and the devotees were worshipping in this way. So the knowledge becomes more and more relishable as the detail increases. So that's what Krishna is going to do in these 3 chapters. At a higher perspective, if you see the 10th chapter, Krishna is going to explain to us how we can see Krishna within matter. So he'll talk about all these material opulences. He will talk about the prowess of man. He will talk about the ability to cheat, the ability to procreate. So he'll talk about all these things that we see around us. And then he says, how can you see me within the material world? In the 11th chapter, Krishna will tell, how can you see the material world within me? So he'll talk about his Virat Roop that encompasses space and time. And in the 12th chapter, Krishna talks about pure devotional service, wherein he distills away these so-called crutches. Right? The 10th and 11th chapter for people who are not able to fully focus on Krishna because they haven't reached that spiritual level. So Krishna says, okay, if you can't focus on me, you're in the material world, you see the trees around you, see the river, see the water, see me within that. Right? So it's an aid, a mnemonic for one to able to see Krishna, one who is naturally not inclined to see Krishna. And then Krishna progresses, the person says that now you can see the whole world is within me. Everything is happening by my desires. And in the 12th chapter, Krishna distills himself away and says, now you see me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead through pure devotional service. Right? So that's how these 3 chapters relate to one another. Some other details of this chapter. So Krishna is again attracting the attention of Arjun. He says, "Shrunu me." Shrunu me means hear me. Now Arjun was already very attentively hearing Krishna, but Krishna is not saying "Shrunu me" to say that Arjun, you have become inattentive, now attend here to me, but he's saying that now with even more attention, hear what I am going to say, because this is even more confidential because of the details that I will reveal you. And he addresses Arjuna as Mahabhau. So Mahabhau means one who is mighty armed. So he's saying that Arjun, amongst the warriors, there is nobody that is equal to you. Now display the same strength of your intelligence and shrunu me, and listen to me. So the acharyas say that that parokshavad rishya paroksham cha mama priya. It comes in the 11th canto. Krishna says himself that parokshavad rishya, that the rishis, the sages, they are used to parokshavat. Parokshavat means speaking in figurative terms, speaking with alliterations and metaphors and similes, speaking indirectly. So parokshavat means actually speaking in a way that is difficult to comprehend. So parokshavada rishi paroksham cha mama priya. And Krishna says actually paroksham cha mama priya, that I actually like this way of speaking. I am pleased by such confidential descriptions. This is 11th canto, chapter 21, verse 35. Now one would say that why does Krishna encourage his devotees and why does he himself engage in parokshavad? Because the jiva himself is materially bewildered. So why doesn't Krishna simply say that I am the Lord, worship me? And the reason, of course, is we discussed in the 9th chapter when Krishna was saying that I am speaking the most confidential knowledge that should not be revealed to anybody, but yet he is speaking it in plain sight, is because of parokshavad. Because even though he speaks openly, he speaks he speaks through literary manipulation, right? So he speaks in indirect terms. He uses analogies. He uses similes. Does not speak directly, and the reason is that the knowledge that he is trying to comprehend is locked within this parokshavat, and then he relies on his devotees to unlock and present it to others. So Bhagavad-gita is a classic example that Bhagavad-gita is relatively a small piece of scripture, just 700 verses, but there are literally, Prabhupada says in the purport, there are more than 2,000 commentaries. By now there are probably more than 10,000 commentaries. Why? Because of parokshavat. Because Krishna has spoken in a way that allows the devotees to present their sense, but also bewilders the non-devotees over here. Srila Prabhupada in the purport says that the more one hears about the Supreme Lord, the more one becomes fixed in devotional service. Right? So that is why Krishna is now going to speak about himself in greater details. Okay, let's go to the next verse. Verse 2. Name viduho suraganaha prabhavam na maharishya ahamadir hi devanam maharishinam cha sarvashaha. Neither the host of demigods nor the great sages know my origin or my opulences. For in every respect I am the source of the demigods and sages. So why was Krishna calling this knowledge even more confidential? Here he is giving proof of it. That the knowledge is so confidential that neither the devas nor the rishis. So name viduhu suraganaha. Right? So suragana are the demigods, and the demigods, they acquire the position by piety. So Krishna is saying that I cannot be known through piety. So then one might say, but what about knowledge and austerity? And Krishna says, Prabhavam na Maharishya. So the Maharishis, the rishis are famous for their knowledge, like the four Kumars, and their austerities, like Brahma, millions of years of austerities. Prabhavam na Maharishya. So neither by piety, which is by performing pious deeds, nor by knowledge, nor by austerities, Krishna says that I can be known. Why? Aham adhiri devana maharishina cha sarvasha. Because I am the cause of the demigods and the rishis. So it is very difficult for one to ascertain their own causes, because the cause predates them. So Krishna is also talking about it not just from the perspective of chronology, but also from the perspective of the source. That the demigods, they get the source of the knowledge of piety, that what to do, what is the right thing to do, what is not to do, the whole Vedas, from Krishna. Similarly, the sages, all the knowledge that they get, all the austerities that they perform, that they are getting from Krishna. So it is difficult for them to ascertain the details about Krishna. In the Isopanishad it said, Netad Deva Apnuvam Purvam Arshat. That he cannot be attained by the Devas because he has existed before them. So this point will be confirmed by Arjun later on in the chapter. In the verse 14, Arjun will himself say that neither the demigods nor the demons can understand you personally. Right? So he doesn't, he is very similar. The demigods are similar. Instead of rishis, he says demons. So the Lord prefaces the knowledge that he is going to give with this verse in order to show the difficulty of understanding him. Now, when Krishna is saying that cannot understand my origin, one of the understanding here also is that it is very difficult for common people to understand how does the Supreme Lord take birth from what seems to be a common seminal birth. So, when Krishna appeared, he appeared as the son of Devaki and Vasudeva. Right? Kamsa was trying to kill him, eighth son, eighth child, etc. So many people ask that before Krishna appeared as the son of Vasudeva, who was the Lord? Who was God at the time? So very difficult for people to understand that how the infinite can confine himself to the finite. How the one who is the source of everything can himself take a source. So then the point is that why is even Krishna bothering to speak if this knowledge is difficult to understand? And Srila Prabhupada explains that only the devotees who are fully surrendered to the Supreme Lord can understand by the grace of the Lord. So it's not that it is impossible to understand, otherwise there would be no point in giving this knowledge, but it is impossible to understand on your own. When one surrenders to Krishna or his devotees, then the empowerment to understand comes from Krishna. Right? And this is the point that Krishna will make later on in this chapter. Okay, let's move on to the next verse. Verse 3. Yo mam ajamanadim cha veti lokamaheshwaram asamodha cha marteshu sarva pape pramuchyate. He who knows me as the unborn, as the beginningless, as the Supreme Lord of all the worlds, he alone, undiluted among men, is freed from all sins. So in the previous verse, Krishna had said that neither the demigods nor the rishis can understand him. But now in this verse he is talking about a person who does understand him. Right? He says, he who knows me as unborn and beginless, he is freed from all sins. So who is this person? Krishna is here talking about his devotees. That he who by the grace of Krishna and his guru and sadhus is able to understand Krishna's actual position becomes freed from all sins. So Krishna talks about three characteristics over here. He says Ajam Anadim and Loka Mahesh Varams. So Ajam means unborn, and there are two things that can be considered as unborn. One is, or rather it's only one thing appearing in two ways. So one is material things like stone and sand and mud and pebbles. There is no birth for them. They may appear and get destroyed, or they may not, but they are ajam because they're never alive, right? So Krishna says that when Krishna says I am ajam, he says I am different from those things that you consider as ajam, right? And the other ajam is the material body of the embodied soul, which is also made of earth, water, fire, air, ether. So the body itself, the soul takes birth and dies, but the material body does not die. So Krishna is saying that I am unborn, but not like them, not like the material elements. Right? So then the second characteristic he says is I am anadim. Anadim means that I am without a beginning. So here he is distinguishing himself from the sadhana siddhas. So when jivas like us that are conditioned, when we become liberated, then we get an eternal spiritual body. Right? So, but there is a point of time that we get liberated. But Krishna says that I am liberated since time immemorial. There was no point of time in which I was conditioned. Right? So Krishna says he's anadim. Now Arjun might say that you're ajam, I can understand, unborn, you're anadim, I can understand, without beginning. But then so are the liberated souls, the nitya siddhas, the eternally liberated souls. They have always been established in their spiritual identity since time immemorial. So then Krishna further distinguishes himself and says, I am Loka Maheshwara, that I am the Lord of everything. So that is the difference between Krishna and us. We are always subordinate. Now, some of us may be subordinate in a very lower position. And there may be somebody like Brahma who is ruling the whole universe, but nevertheless even Brahma is subordinate. So there is only one person, that is Loka Maheshwaram, that is Krishna. So when you combine these three adjectives that Krishna uses, Ajamanadim, Loka Maheshwaram, then it points only to Krishna. So Krishna is making this point to help us understand that Krishna is unique. So even though as jivas we are Ajamanadim, that in the second chapter Krishna makes this point, right? That the soul never takes birth, never dies, is eternal, etc. And Krishna also is a Jamanadim, but the jivas are always subordinate. Acharyas also mentioned that Krishna uses this in the context of his Leela. Right? That when he says that those who can understand that I am unborn but taking birth as the son of Devaki. Those who understand that I am Anadim but yet there is Krishna Janmashtami being celebrated. And those who understand that I am Loka Maheshwaram, yet I steal butter from the houses of other cowherd men and women, that person knows me. So, similar point is made by Krishna in the 4th chapter when he says, Janma karma cha me deviyam yo me veti tattva. That one who understands that my birth and appearances and activities are all transcendental. Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he talks about another example of Krishna's Achintya Shakti. Right? So this concept of the unborn taking birth and one who is feared by fear personified, becoming scared of his own parents. So that is Achintya. That is inconceivable. Krishna's Achintya Shakti. Krishna gives another example that all actions that are done under such direction, and direction here points to the direction of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, he says Prabhupada says, are free from pious and impious reactions. The transcendental attitude of the devotees in the performance of activities is actually that of renunciation, and thus is called sannyas. This is stated in the 1st chapter, Anasaktasya karma phalam. Right? So, another example of Achintya is the devotees that come under Krishna's internal energy, they also display this Achintya Shakti. In what way? That they may be doing activities that are seemingly karmic activities. They may be taking care of families, they may be working at jobs, they may be working hard to raise money, but because it is done under the direction of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, they are actually sannyas. They are actually activities in renunciation. And so Krishna is also introducing the concept of how the devotees become when they come in touch with Krishna, they also come in touch with his Achintya Shakti. Okay, let's go to the next verse. Verses 4 and 5. Buddhir jnanam sammoha shama satyam damaha shamaha sukham dukham bhavo bhavo bhayam chabhyam evacha ahimsa samata tushtish tapodanam yasho yashah bhavanti bhava bhutana matteva pradakvidaha. Intelligence, knowledge, freedom from doubt and delusion, forgiveness, truthfulness, control of the senses, control of the mind, happiness and distress, birth, death, fear, fearlessness, non-violence, equanimity, satisfaction, austerity, charity, fame and infamy. All these various qualities of living beings are created by me alone. So this is an elaboration on a point that Krishna made in the previous verses, that he is difficult to comprehend because he is the source of everything. So here Krishna is elaborating on how he is the source of everything. So in these 2 verses, Krishna talks about 20 qualities of the jiva and establish himself as the origin of them. because these are the attributes that the jiva uses to determine things. And because Krishna is the origin of them, the point Krishna is making that he cannot be ascertained by the jiva by using these qualities which are in fact coming from him. So of these 20 qualities, 15 qualities are considered to be sattvic and 5 qualities are considered to be tamasic or bad qualities. And even in the sattvic there are two subcategories, one that are actually sattvic and the second that are conditionally either sattvic or rajasic. So 5 qualities are considered to be conditional. They're either there's some, depending on the nature circumstance, they're either sattvic or rajasic. So we'll quickly go over these 20 qualities. So the first 3 qualities, buddhi, gyan, asammoha. Right? So these are that which one uses to ascertain things. So buddhi is intelligence. The intelligence to make distinctions between gross and subtle, or between different philosophical aspects, and to analyze them. Then gyan refers more specifically to making the distinction between atma and non-atma, between chit and achit, between matter and spirit. And asammoha, so samoha means confusion, asammoha means the absence of confusion. So this also means conviction that one understands something, one does not hesitate to act upon. So we can relate to it as we are practicing devotees ourselves, that when we attempt to engage ourselves in devotional service, then we use these 3 things, buddhi, gyan, and hopefully we reach the stage of asammoha to make advancements. But here Krishna is saying that these things come from him. So unless we explicitly acknowledge it, that the intelligence that we are using to understand the scriptures is coming from Krishna. The knowledge that helps us make the distinction from matter and spirit is coming from Krishna. And the clearance of the confusion is also coming from him. And him meaning Krishna. So when we say Krishna, Krishna stands for Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. So Krishna giving the knowledge in the scriptures, in Sadhu, other holy people, and Guru as the spiritual master. Without that, one cannot understand Krishna. Now there are 7 qualities that are given here that are sattvic. So they are kshama. Kshama means tolerate and forgive. So one must tolerate hardships, understanding that they are the mercy of the Lord, and one must be ready to forgive the offenses of others. Satyam is truthfulness, which means that the facts should be presented as they are. And one must speak the truth for the benefit of others. And so this is an important aspect, because we see many times that, and to some extent some devotees may also be guilty of this, that they present their own thoughts as if they are coming from Krishna. So either because of personal motivation, or because they're lazy, so they will not study the scriptures, but they will use conventional understanding to present things. Well, Krishna says in Bhagavad-gita, karma is supreme. Right? People will say, especially Prometa, they'll say, karma is, just do your karma. Right? Now, Krishna says that, but he says many other things also. He says, higher than karma is jnana, higher than jnana is astanga yoga, higher than astanga yoga is bhakti. So, presenting a partial truth is actually the greatest lie. So, Satyam means that they should be presented as they are. That's what Prabhupada called this, Bhagavad-gita as it is. Then Dhamma means control of the senses, which means that one uses the senses for the service of the Lord. Sama means control of the mind. Sama is a higher level of control, wherein the mind is restrained from dwelling on objects of enjoyment or plans for personal enjoyment. Sukham means regarding something as favorable. Right? So making that distinction, and for devotees it means that regarding everything that is related to Krishna as sukham, as favorable. Ahimsa is non-violence, which means not to put any living entity into pain or anxiety. And ahimsa also means non-violence to the self. So we have obtained this human form because of great fortune, but if you do not use it to make spiritual advancement, that is committing the greatest violence to one's own body. And samatha means displaying equanimity, which means that not being attracted to that is favorable and repulsed with that is unfavorable, but looking at everything from the perspective of Krishna consciousness. Now there are 5 qualities that are given as tamasic. So they are dukham. Dukham is the companion of sukham. So dukham means that regarding something as unfavorable or suffering. Then bhava is birth. So bhava is considered unfavorable because this is the situation when the soul takes on a material body and thereby forgets its spiritual identity. Then abhava is death, and death is when the soul is forcibly separated from a material body and forced to take on another body. This is also reincarnation. Bhaya is fear that arises from something that has happened or one thinks will happen. So it comes from excessive absorption in material energy. And abhaya is absence of fear. So fearlessness is so this is one of those qualities that can be considered to be either sattvic or tamasic. So when one is actually fearless because they have taken shelter of Krishna, then abhaya is a sattvic quality. But abhaya is also absence of fear because of absence of knowledge. It's said that fools rush where angels fear to tread. So there are people who are fearlessly living their life, committing sins, eating meat, intoxication, etc. There's absence of fear. Why? Because of ignorance. So that abhaya is coming from tamasa. What are the other qualities that are in this category? Tushti. Tushti is satisfaction. So if tushti is unconditional, that means it is not predicated on I should have so much money and I should have so much fame, then it is sattvic. But if it is conditioned, it is predicated on these material factors, then it is rajasic. Tapas is austerity or penances. So when one submits to them to purify their own existence, then it is sattvic. But when one executes penances in order to achieve something or in order to cause harm to others, then it is rajasic or tamasic. Similarly, dan is charity. So when one offers something, and this Krishna will speak in the 17th chapter, when offers something without any expectation of return to the right person at the right time, that is mode of goodness, sattvic. But when one gives charity expecting to be glorified or acknowledged or expecting reciprocation, that is rajasic. Then yasha is fame. So when the fame is coming because of one's connection with Krishna, when it is automatically coming, then it is sattvic. But when one is striving for fame or one is thirsty for fame, that is rajasic. Then infamy. So when will infamy be a sattvic quality? When one is indifferent to it. Sometimes devotees get a bad name. They say that devotees are lazy, all they do is sit and chant Hare Krishna. Why don't they go out to the world and do some real work? And devotees, they're indifferent to it. They're indifferent to it. It's a good quality. Then they don't aspire for either yash or ayash. But when one is infamous because they have bad qualities, one is infamous because the person is causing harm to others, or is famous for his enviousness or for sinful nature, then that is rajasic and tamasic. So one might say that why is Krishna the cause of bad qualities? Prabhupada says that everything good or bad is originating from Krishna. So if Krishna would not be the origin of the bad qualities, then it would impinge on his earlier statement where he says, I am the origin of everything. But essentially the bad qualities are manifested by the jivas because of their rebellious nature. Just like a judge, when he creates the law book, he also has many pages for punishments. It does not mean that the judge is a bad person, or the judge is malicious and he's saying this person I will hang and this person I will put in jail. He's simply writing them because he knows that there will be those who will break the rule and they are now qualified to get this kind of punishment. So similarly, Krishna is making these qualities because he knows that there are jivas who will be rebellious. There are jivas who will be very much attached to their own fame, who will be sinful. And for them, he creates those qualities. So all these are coming from Krishna's energy. So in the next verse, Krishna will further elaborate on this distinction. Next verse, 6. Maharshaya saptapurve chatvaro manavas tatha madbhava manasa jata yesham loka imaha prajaha. The 7 great sages, and before them the 4 other great sages, and the manus, progenitors of mankind, come from me, born from my mind, and all the living beings populating the various planets descend from them. So in the previous verse, Krishna had said that piety, knowledge, austerities, they are insufficient to understand him. Right now in this verse, he gives a practical example of it. So he says that Chatvaru is the first he says is the 4 Kumaras. So the 4 Kumaras, they are Krishna's Jnana Shakti. They are Krishna's knowledge potency. Then he talks about the Saptarishis, the 7 great sages who are famous for their austerities. Then he talks about the 14 Manus. And the Manus are kings that are famous for their piety. So he is saying that none of them can understand me because they are coming from him. So whether it is the piety of the Manus, or it is the knowledge of the 4 Kumars, or it is the austerities of the Saptarishis. In any of these 3 situations, which essentially represents the possible material situations, one cannot understand Krishna because they are coming from him. Now then Krishna then extrapolates it, saying that everybody in the universe is now coming from them. So the Manus essentially are the progenitors of the mankind. So everything is descending from the Manus. From the 4 Kumaras, the knowledge is descending. From the Saptarishis, the Vedas and performance of austerities is descending. So the humans or the Devas who come from the Manus, who take the knowledge from the 4 Kumars, who understand austerities from the Saptarishis, they cannot also understand Krishna because when the original The four Kumars themselves cannot understand Krishna. The Manus cannot understand Krishna. The Saptarishis cannot understand Krishna because they are dependent on Krishna. Now, interesting point to note here is that so there is 25 personalities that are given over here. Right? So there are the 7 great sages, and the list of the sages are slightly different in different scriptures. Sometimes it's considered to be kalpabhed, that in different kalpas there are different saptarishis. So in our kalpa, the saptarishis are generally considered to be Marichi, Bhrigu, Atri, Pulastya, Pulaha, Kratu and Vashisht. Then there are the Chatur Kumaras, the 4 Kumaras, the Sanak, Sanatan, Sanandan and Sanat Kumar. And then there are the 14 Manus that appear in the day of Brahma, beginning from Swayambhu Manu. We are currently in the reign of the 7th Manu. So none of them actually come from Krishna. In fact, the 7 sages, they appear from Brahma. The 4 Kumars, they appear from Brahma. And so do, at least the Swayambhu Manu appears from Brahma, and the subsequent Manus are appearing in the lineage of the original Manu. So then why does Krishna say that they are coming from me? Right? So there are 3 reasons that Acharyas gave. One, Krishna is considering Brahma to be non-different from him. So he says Madbhava. So because Brahma is an empowered incarnation of Krishna, he is Krishna's creation potency. So when Krishna says that they are coming from me, it can be understood that he is saying that they are coming from me in the form of Hiranyagarbha Brahma. Because everything that Brahma is doing is by the empowerment of Krishna. Second reason is that Brahma, he was only able to create these personalities after he performed austerities and he got the mercy of Krishna. So in the Bhagavatam it is given that how when Brahma appeared, he was not able to do anything. He in fact even didn't know why he was there. And after he performed austerities, he received the mercy of Krishna. And then he was able to create the universe, as part of which he created these personalities. So essentially, this is the descending mercy of Krishna. And the third point is that these 25 personalities that Krishna gives, they themselves are closely aligned to Krishna in terms of his desires. So whatever Krishna wants, they do. So because there is this close affinity of purpose, causality is implied. And because regardless of whether they are appearing from Brahma or whether they are appearing from other Manu, their only purpose in life is to satisfy the orders of Krishna. Which means that essentially Krishna is not different from them. Srila Prabhupada in the purport writes that there are innumerable universes and innumerable planets within each universe, and each planet is full of population of different varieties. All of them are born of these 25 patriarchs. Brahma underwent penances for 1000 years of the demigods before he realized by the grace of Krishna how to create. Then from Brahma came the 4 Kumaras, then Rudra, then the Saptarishis, and in this way all the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas were born out of the energy of the Lord. Brahma is known as Pitama, the grandfather, and Krishna is known as Parampita, the father of the grandfather. This is stated in Bhagavad-gita 11:39. Okay, let's do the next verse. Okay, verse 7. Etam vibhutim yogam cha mam yo veti tattvataha so vikalpena yogena yujyate natra samshayah. One who is factually convinced of this opulence and mystic power of mine engages in unalloyed devotional service. Of this there is no doubt. So this verse essentially summarizes the point that Krishna has been making in the previous verse, and it also lays the foundation for the remaining chapter. So in the previous verses, Krishna has made this point that everything is coming from him. Right? So he talks about the vibhutis, Krishna has also made the point that it is difficult to understand Krishna. Now, he combines these 2 points in this verse, and he says that one who is factually convinced of these opulences, right? So the first point is one who is factually convinced that all these opulences that one sees around is a demonstration of Krishna's mystic power. But the second point is also is important, that then he engages in unalloyed devotional service. So this is why Krishna is speaking about his vibhutis, because it gives the impetus for the jiva to perform bhakti. So one may philosophically understand that Krishna is great, but when one sees that actually how great Krishna is, then one's motivation to surrender to Krishna becomes even stronger. So devotional service not only gives one the understanding that all the vibhutis are coming from Krishna, devotional service also lays the foundation from appreciating these vibhutis and furthering itself. So we see that bhakti is both the cause and the effect. Only by bhakti can one understand Krishna's opulence and mystic powers, and the result of this understanding is that one becomes even more convinced about the need to execute devotional service. And so etam vibhutim, that these vibhutis are greater than anything that you will see, and so vikalpena yogena, right? So avikalpena means that, so vikalp means doubts, avikalpa means without any doubts, yogena. So yogena over here means devotional service. The person engages in bhakti, right? So we see here both that bhakti is that which allows the devotees to appreciate Krishna's vibhutis. Because if somebody simply looks at these opulences and is not able to relate them to Krishna, then they fall in that category that Krishna is speaking about, that they essentially become bewildered because they are unable to ascertain their own causes. But when through the execution of bhakti, one is able to understand that all these opulences are essentially a manifestation of Krishna, then that understanding in turn strengthens one's own bhakti. So we'll stop over here. The next 4 verses are very important verses. The Chaturshloki Bhagavad-gita, we will do that in our next discussion. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.